All right, so we're going to learn a couple more things about using Jigsaw. If you remember, we looked at setting variables. We also looked at printing, and we looked at speaking. So those are three very basic things. You'll notice that in here we also have another expression that's very similar to the result equals 0. We have a result equals ask question. So I wanted to go over that really quickly and then also show you how to save your program. So you'll see I have a new Jigsaw script here, and it has a little star next to it, which means I've made changes to it. So in a minute I'll show you how to save those changes and what happens when you have a new Jigsaw script and you're running it. So let's look at this little block. You'll notice one thing we didn't really cover last time either was if you're clicking on a block, if you want to make a change to a block, you just click on it and it'll be surrounded by these little dots. So, and you'll also see that the things down here change, so it's pretty clear what you're editing. So let's take this result equals ask question, which looks very similar to our statement result equals 0. Only we're going to, you'll notice that the label is ask and then question is in parentheses. So this indicates that we have a function that's going to do something special, and it's going to save it as a variable. So in this case, instead of, it uses some pretty simple language here. So you're going to ask, and you're going to put here what you want to ask. So let's say we want to ask the people who run our program what their name is when they come up. So we're going to say, what is your name? And we want to store that name in a variable. They're calling that answer here, which is perfectly fine. So we're going to store the answer in what they're calling the answer, and we're going to call this name because that's what the result is. It is going to be someone's name when we ask the question. And then here, let's say we want to print that out. So just as we did with our statement, we can print the variable that we've set our statement to. We can do the same thing with this expression here. So we're going to print name, and let's also speak it. This is kind of double whammy. We don't really need to do this because as you might remember, it prints and speaks whenever you use the speak function. So let's see what happens when we run this program. And let's take this out. Now, one of the things that it's a little bit challenging about using Jigsaw is that you carry things around by the top block. So if you happen to want to remove the top block, you actually have to remove from the bottom. So I've got my 3 blocks, and I'm just going to stick those back in here, and I'm going to get rid of this because we don't need it. So it just takes a little practice of figuring out what to move, but they do tend to snap together, and it works pretty well. So I'm going to click the green button, and two things are going to happen. First of all, it's going to ask me to save my program, and then of course it's going to run the program after it saves it. So I'm going to hit the green button, and the save dialog comes up. So I'm going to name this, I don't know, ask question as a sample. So we'll save that, and then it runs it, and you'll notice that it actually yelled at me. And this is actually a good thing. I don't like to have errors when I'm doing things, but you'll see that it doesn't like this string that I've put in here. So what that tells me is that it doesn't like the quotes that I've used. So in print, you can actually use, I have a single quote on one end and a double quote on the other end. So that's what it's yelling at me about. So it doesn't really care whether I use single or double. What it does care about is that they're the same. So I'm going to change that. So you need to be careful about that, and it is kind of hard to see here. So I'm going to hit the run again. You'll notice there's an asterisk up here, so that tells me I have made a change, and hopefully that change is going to fix our error here. So I'm going to hit run, and what happens is it asks me for my name. So we're headed down the right track. So I'm going to put my name in here, and I'm going to hit enter.
Dr. Blankenship.
And sure enough, it both prints my name twice because print does that and speak does that. So that's a pretty handy little thing. You could ask anything. In fact, we could add another block in here, and this is a useful thing to know. So even though this is the same block as the one above, if we make this question and answer different and store it separately, we can actually do two things. So let's say we want to know maybe where they go to school. So we can ask, where do you go to school? Or let's do this. What grade are you in? So we're going to ask what grade we're in, and I've got two single quotes, so that's good. And we're going to save this in a variable called grade, because that makes sense, right? And now we're going to, let's say we're going to print that as well. Now, in some programs, you don't have to use two print statements, and we could actually mush these together, but Jigsaw does something a little weird when you put two variables together in a print statement. So we're going to print them separately, so it should print, I'm actually going to take speak out for right now since we're working on this. So we're going to print first our name and then our grade. We'll put name, and I'm going to put grade 20. So it prints my name and my grade. Now that's okay as it goes, but maybe what we want to do is say hello to the person that we are talking to. And we can do that by actually adding strings together. So I'm going to put hello, comma, space, in quotes, and then I'm going to put a plus sign after that. So we can add two things together as long as they're the same kinds of things. So I can add a string to another string. I can add an integer to an integer, so 3 plus 4 gives me 7, but I can't add hello to 3. I could if I made 3 a string. How do you like grade, comma, space, plus, and we're going to hit enter. Okay, there we go. Now let's try it. Okay, how do you like grade 20? So 20, this wouldn't work if 20 were an actual number, but it's pretending like it's a word right now. So it adds those things together. So that's one way you can take information in and print it back out again. So those are some other input-output functions. So let's talk about the other things that are here that we didn't really talk about. We have tell, which is a message that shows up in a box. So we could put, and let's see what happens. We've got to take our name again and our grade, and it's going to print those, and it's going to print a message to the screen that says, how are you? Okay, that's actually kind of funny. So a tell is just something that shows up on the screen, like, you know, the game is about to begin, or whatever, the script is over, or something like that. So it just shows a nice little box. The other things, these other two things are beep. And let's take these out so we don't have to, I'm just going to set these over here. They won't run, they're hanging out over here, they're just sort of in limbo. So beep obviously beeps. The first one is sort of a default frequency, so beeps takes a duration and a frequency, so we could change this, and this is in seconds. We could change our frequency, and you can actually look up the frequencies of notes if you want to play around with that. And you can see that that lasts for a really long time. So those are some other outputs, and people have used these beep things to make songs. So you can do something more interesting than that. So that covers all of the input-output stuff. And we've covered everything that we could use really for the statement stuff for right now. And we're going to talk a little bit more about the control stuff. And for now, I'm going to show you one other control thing, and that is the repeat, which is really just a loop, because we're going to use this a little bit later. So let's take our beeps and stick them in here. Then we have to put this inside our when script starts. We're going to repeat this 3 times. Now you'll notice that we could actually change this. We could change it to 5. We could change it to 10. We could change it to whatever we want. So let's not do 10. Let's do 5. So when I run the script, it should beep this, and then come back and beep that, and it's going to do that 5 times. That's what it sounds like. It sounds a lot like an alarm, so that might be an interesting way to have an alarm sound. So that's repeating things, which we're going to use very shortly. So we've covered some more input-output. We looked at using ask question. We looked at tell. We looked at beeping. And we also added another control feature to our arsenal. So we're going to learn how to use repeat or loop through something more than one time.